Hello, everybody. Pastor Boyle here from Revival Baptist Church, and we are at our family camp, and I've got Pastor Tommy McMurtry and his wife from Liberty Baptist Church, Rock Falls, Illinois, and now we are also joined with Pastor Theo Matthews and his wife from Abiding Word Baptist Church in Jacksonville. And so we're coming here today, as we did last year, to answer some questions on the home, family, rearing children, and many of you have submitted questions, and so I've got them here on my phone. I'm going to look through them, and we're just going to ask the pastors and their wives to give some advice, share some helpful tips on raising children. I will ask that you excuse my voice from the start. I've lost my voice, and we still have another night of preaching in the morning, and then of course Sunday, so pray that I make it through, but my voice is not the best, and so for that I apologize. But I want to go ahead and get started with some of the questions, and we have about a dozen or so that I'd like to cover if time allows. And Pastor McMurtry, I'll let you start, and then anybody here can feel free to join in and add some thought and advice there. But question number one, what are some steps to ensure that you don't lose your kids to the world as they get older?
So we always have to remember we're in competition with the world. They're presenting their product, we're presenting our product. So we have, anywhere from 18, 20 years to present what your product and to prove what you have is better. So the thing is, you have to make sure that the example that they live is better. And it's not just a list of rules, but it's stuff that works. And so you've got to have a happy home. You have to have something they're going to want to reproduce, not just something that they're trying to escape. And so I always keep that in my mind, that the world is always out there calling for them, promoting their false ideas. So I want to expose them to the truth of the world, let them see what it's really like, but then I got to make sure what I'm promoting is actually a good thing that somebody would want.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, I would want to explain to them the why of what we do, and not just copy what we're doing. We go to church every week. I don't want them to just think that we're just doing this just because we're going to church. That's what we do. But explain why we're doing these things. We're serving the Lord. We're preaching the gospel. We're getting people saved. We're trying to clean up our lives and please God. And so I would want to focus on the why and explain to the children why we're doing it.
Right, and no parent wants to lose their kid.
No.
And sadly, it seems like you can see in other families that child that is just enduring their family unit. Yeah. And they're just, whatever has happened, you don't know into the home, but you can tell that as soon as they're old enough, they're going to leave. Mm-hmm. And be mindful that it's the same thing just in people skills in general. When you're out going soul winning, and you're the silent partner, and there's nothing worse than being the silent partner of someone who's oblivious to the guy at the door who's about to blow up. Mm-hmm. And they're just continuing on, and then when they finally do explode, the soul winner's looking like, wow, where'd that come from? And you're like, I could have seen it from the beginning. Yep. And so read responses. You can tell when a child needs attention, and not just a discipline. Sometimes a child just needs a daddy-daughter date, or a daddy-son date, or a mommy-son date, and just let them know that you love them and you appreciate them. Your home, as Pastor Matthews preached last night, should be that shelter, should be that place of refuge where your kids enjoy being. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when you are too strict in the home, meaning it's all law and no love, you lose your children. And so I would say, for my advice would be, balance it. Mm-hmm. Yes, I want my children to obey, but they're not in a military camp. I love my children, and I know what my children like, and sometimes I just do things because I know they like it. And
and you have to observe your children too as they grow up. You're going to see where their interests are and the things that they like, and if they seem to be drawn towards more worldly things, that's a warning right there. And all right, I've got to try to change set their affection somewhere else. I've got to get them more interested in things that are good. I need to maybe check on the influences I'm allowing in my home. And a lot of times you have kids, they're wanting to dress certain ways and act certain ways, and a lot of times you can find out where it's coming from. It's coming from the television. So you got to remember, they're working against you, and so you've always got to be paying attention to those kids. And when you see them interested in spiritual things and the things of God, that's good. You're doing good. Keep that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen. And ladies, have anything you want to add?
No, I think there's a checklist mentality a
Yeah.
lot with families. If I do A, B, and C, I'm going to produce a good kid. But it's more than just giving birth to a kid. There's so much. Every kid is unique. Every kid is different, and it's training from the time they're born, instilling. This is why we do it. Brother Matthew said, this is the whys of it, and we're not trying to raise robotic army. We're raising an army, but not a robotic army.
Right.
And they all have different wills and different emotions. And I like your advice about just the one-on-one time.
Yeah.
When I have a kid that's acting up, if I take a day and focus on that child, it improves drastically.
It does, and sometimes that's all they need.
Yeah.
And here's some more advice on not lose your kid would be, don't make church a punishment.
Yeah.
Right.
Or a reward if they're good. That stays out of the troubles, and hey, this, some parents were like, you're going to go to church and you're going to sit, and they're making it a punishment, or you're not going to go to church tonight if you don't do it, And so you want to leave that part out, because that's what you want them to do, whether they're good or bad. You want them in church. You want them reading their Bible. Don't make church a punishment, or God's people, hanging around God's people, a punishment. But you just have to be mindful of that. And another thing you could do would be surround yourself with good company, and someone who can you've seen them raise their kids. Their kids are older than yours. You like the product, and just hang around and watch how they interact. I remember when our kids were little, Robin and I would always we had little kids, and I'd always find parents that had teenagers that I liked the relationship that the teenagers had with the parents. They were raising good kids. And I would watch, and I would take note that the dad would look at one of the kids and smile and wink, and I think they just spoke to each other. They knew, and we don't know what they said, and yet they had that relationship. Or I'd see them, high-fiving each other. I'm like, they like being around each other. And so as we get older and our kids are teenagers, they have way more energy than we do. But I go out there and I'll jump in the lake, I'll go swimming, or play baseball, or I'll play. My shoes are soaked right now from throwing water balloons. Things that I don't personally enjoy doing, but they do. And so, be part of their life, I think, is a good. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next one?
I was just going to say, paying attention to each individual child, what they like what's their particular thing, because since they're all different, like you were saying, knowing their differences and just kind of, reciprocating that with that child, so that they know that that they're an individual, that they have certain likes, certain dislikes. For example, remembering that this particular child does not like tomatoes.
Yeah.
So if you ever give them a tomato, that might hurt, because it's like, what? I don't like tomato. Oh, sorry. But remembering that, it's like, I know you don't like tomatoes, so you won't have to eat tomatoes. But everybody else has to, because I said they have to eat tomatoes. Okay.
Well, here's the bigger question: who doesn't like tomatoes? No.
I know, right?
All right, so the next question, this one might be the ladies, because they will find themselves in the situation more than us men. How often should I spank my children? Is the question. I don't know what's behind. That's the question that was said. But how often should I spank my children?
Every hour on the hour.
Yeah, I set a timer. Every time it beeps. No.
Right. Yeah. All right. You got 30 seconds there right now. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, you can't. It's not a number.
No.
The question you have to ask yourself is, are the spankings working? And if they're not working, you need to find out why. The goal is to, do it less and less. And every kid's unique. You're going to do things one way with one kid. If you're blessed to start out with an easy kid,
We weren't.
you might have the hardest spank of all.
We were not.
Our first one, he got spanked all the time. Our second one, not as much.
No, really.
But then eventually he got to a stage where he had to get spanked all the time. No kid, two kids do things the same. They all throw you curveballs, and so you're gonna have all these plans. As a parent, I'm gonna make my kid do this and this and this. I'm gonna spank him this many times, and it's gonna take care of everything. But let me tell you, that little baby, it's gonna come with a whole bunch of personality and a will of its own, and you can't possibly predict what it's gonna do.
No.
And the thing is when it comes to punishment, you need to pay attention if it's working, and you got to figure that child out. And it's trust your instincts with that. Don't just spank them 10 times a day. And
Right.
That's good, But at the same time too, use motivation too. Like, hey, let's see if we can go a whole day without getting spanked.
Yeah.
And that, let them see you're excited about that too. Like, you don't want to spank them. And so those are, make that a big deal. It's like, I used to do that with some of our kids too. It's like, man, no spankings today, only 2, or something like that.
You used to ask me when you would come home,
Yeah,
so how'd we do?
How many spankings did you get today? And I think it was one of the boys. I'd ask him, how many spankings did you get today? And sometimes, 3 or 4 or whatever. But then,
If you can get down to 2 a day, I'm qualified to pastor.
but then take it from.
Yeah, when is the spankings day? When does that
That's right.
unruly children? When does that
Right,
start?
yeah, right.
2? 5?
So just check to make sure it's working.
Well, I look at the question, how often should I spank my children? I would look at that like, answer not a fool according to his folly, answer a fool according to his folly. Because you have the scripture saying not to spare the rod. But then you have the scriptures that say, he that being often reproved hardeneth his neck, and that without remedy. And so there's the warning not to reprove too much and not to reprove at all. And there's that balance, and that's where the parent comes in. And that's why I think parents are the ones qualified to discipline, not a third party. Because you look at some kid screaming at Walmart, what's your I ought to whoop. If that was my kid, right? Because you don't know what that kid's going through.
Right.
You don't know, has he already gotten 4 spankings today? What's on their plate? Now, I would argue that the average parent's not spanking. I think that is probably the problem. But as a parent, and so don't let someone in the church look down at you for not spanking or for spanking. It's not their child. They don't know what's going on in the home. And so there's a time to spank and there's a time not to spank. And as a parent, learn that not by asking the questions to other parents, but by watching, as Pastor McMurtry said, are they working with your child? And you'll find that those battles will be in the younger years. And after a while, you'll find almost hardly any spankings as they get older.
Well, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When it comes to that child, parents are the best qualified because that child is a combination of the 2 of you and not somebody else. So a lot of times when you see your kid doing something, as a dad, I see it and it's like, I know where they got that. And so I also know
From his mother.
We
have dynamic children because of our
Sometimes when our kids do
personalities.
certain things, I'm like, that's not from me. That's you. And I know that's from her. So the thing is, when they're doing something I would do, my thought process is, what did my parents do that worked? And and that's something that only I can answer, or only she can answer. And that's the other great thing too. There's a wonderful group of advisors and counselors that are out there who have also raised something just like that. And it's your parents, and you can often sometimes go, because we forget, especially if it was when we were 2, 3, or 4, something like that. And grandparents, they often see kids doing things. I remember my mom in particular, when I was little, I was probably 1 year old. My 2 cousins, they took us all to get our pictures together at a studio. Well, when we all got older, we all had boys right around those same ages. So we decided to go take it to the studio. Well, my mom always talked about how horrible we were and what a bad experience it was. And I remember we went to go to the studio, get the pictures taken, and they were all being bad. And my mom was just over there just laughing. And she was loving every minute of it because she's like, I know where they get that. And so they're a great asset that can really help you out.
Yeah, I was going to say that the goal is not spanking. Like you're not trying to say, oh, I have to spank them because of spanking's sake. No, you love your children, so you want to train them to grow and to learn, to correct whatever bad behavior that they're in. It's not, oh, I have to just spank them. So we're not saying that we enjoy spanking our children for the sake of spanking. No, it's the tool that God gave us to train our children properly, so they know, okay, don't do that, don't touch that. It helps them to understand what's right and what's wrong. And I mean, if you don't spank your child, it's like you hate them because you don't want them to grow up in truth and to be a good person. And I've said this before, a child that's not being spanked, they're not disciplined properly at home, well, those are the ones that usually end up in jail later on because the police, they're not up to tolerate misbehaving people. They'll put you in jail. Sometimes you get tased, and even worse, they might even kill somebody. So.
Yeah, so I think that mentality, is out there that we have this chart of infractions and how many spankings and what we do. So like, okay, so what's the crime committed? Okay, and that's a robot parent there's no emotion. Sometimes what they did deserves a spanking, but they don't need a spanking. Mm-hmm. They need something different. They need, you know what, let's go sit down and talk for a little bit.
They need a nap.
Let's go. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, and the Bible says too, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction drives it far from him.
Amen.
So the thing is, part of what you're spanking him for is foolishness. Some kids aren't as foolish as others. And here's the other thing too, because I think this is one of the reasons the firstborn gets the double portion a lot of times is, a lot of times people feel like, we kind of feel like, we spanked the older ones more than the younger ones. But I think what a lot of that is, you also smite the scorner and the simple will beware.
Right. Yeah.
So the thing is, those little kids, they see the older brothers and sisters getting spanked, and you're training them without even spanking them because they're seeing that and it's driving that foolishness from them. So some kids might not need to get that many spankings. Some are exceptionally foolish and need a lot, but hopefully you can build that wisdom in them, and you don't need to do that much.
All right. I believe we're on question number 3. How should me and my spouse go on a date? I'm not sure to the extent of that question, but let's start off with just dating as married couples. That is important. The Bible gives the command to the men to nourish and cherish our wives as our own body, and the nourishing is the supplying of the needs. We're the breadwinners. We bring the money. We put it. We pay the bills. I don't know why she's not happy. There's food in the cupboard. Well, that's the supplying of the needs. And if we won't do that, we're worse than an infidel. But then there's the cherishing side, and that's the part that is beyond the needs. That would be a date. That would be the dozen roses. That would be whatever it is. Again, knowing your wife, a dozen roses might not do anything for her. She might rather have something. So what do you give your wife to make her not mad at you? Well, what is your wife like? What are her preferences? Take her out. Well, my wife doesn't like to go out. Well, then find something your wife likes, right? So I think just dating, just share some thoughts on dating in general as a married couple.
Yeah. Well, you definitely need it for sure. It's so important that you take care of the marriage relationship, because the thing is, your kids are going to grow up and be gone, and you're still going to be married to each other. So that is the priority. A lot of parents, I think they mess up by making the kids the priority, and they let the marriage just fall apart. Problem with that, then you have a miserable household, which just creates more problems for the kids. So the thing is, never feel guilty about going on dates. Don't feel guilty about putting your kids to bed really early so you can enjoy some time together. But that as far as going on dates, obviously you have to have somebody watch them. So it's important. Stay close to family. If you have parents, aunts and uncles and things that you trust, you need that, and be that for somebody else too. If you have to make deals with people, you watch our kids this weekend, we'll watch yours. Whatever you have to do, because that time is very important and it's crucial. And so when they're little, it is hard, and things are usually tough financially. It can it can be expensive. And if you're in that situation where it is just difficult, it's a lot of work just to create that thing, just hang on. One of these days your kids are going to get to an age where he can or she can watch them, and then you can go on dates whenever you want, and then you're just going to be like,
it's wonderful.
All right, yeah, we made it. And so just hang on, you'll get there. But
I remember
make it a priority.
When we were first married, and the younger children, and we may have been 1, 2, or 3. They're all little, and I had to literally get a pry bar between my wife and the kid. Just let the kid. We're going on a date, and sometimes it was more effort trying to do that than to just let her have the baby, and let's just okay, fine, because they do grow up. But find out what's best for your wife, and you'll know. Sometimes your wife's like, no, don't waste the money. We don't have it. That's probably when you need to. Oh, let's go. Let's spend some time together, And so dating is important, just as it was in the beginning of your relationship. It is in the marriage stage. Any thoughts over here? Or?
Yeah, I would just say, so we've gone on dates before with the whole family, and I know that might be unpopular, but we have older children now, and we do a lot of things together just as a family anyway. And I like, in particular, the children, they could see us together. They don't know that it's a date, but they see us together. They see that we love each other and the whole family's together. So it's always a family thing. And I like that they can see that the whole family is together. We have had babysitters in the past, but now that they're older, it's a little bit difficult, for us. But I mean, going out on the date, if possible,
Now that
if
they're
we could
older,
do that.
it's difficult.
Yes, because we've built this family culture now. So, like, if we were to leave them, well, I don't want to leave them with the oldest right now. Okay, he needs to get a little bit older.
Not ready, not quite ready.
Yeah,
yet.
not yet. We may come home with broken windows or something. I don't know, but maybe eventually we'll get there. But for right now, we've built this culture of just family. So when we go out, mom and dad want to be together. Well, they're with us too, and they can also play games, or they have little things that they can do. But we can spend time talking to each other. But it is very important that you continue to value the relationship between you and your spouse.
Okay, some good answers. Same line of thought, but this is before marriage now, and it's how long should I date before getting married?
Yeah, there's no number you can put on that. There's so many things you have to factor in
Right.
there. But the key thing is just making sure that you get it right the first time. And so you do what you've got to do to make that happen. I don't think it's a good idea to date super long, because you don't want to just put yourself in temptation and things like that. But I do think you need to make sure you know what you're in for. You do need to you take the time to get to know someone a little bit. There's something about a year seeing somebody in 4 seasons, that
What's
can
that?
tell you a lot. You
guys know what that is.
So where we're from,
Moved to Illinois.
where we're from, winter can change people for
really
for the negative.
It really-
you need to see them.
it really
You need to
can.
see how they handle winter. And
true.
there's something about we're in Illinois. We have 4 seasons, and as a pastor, you see how there's a difference in the seasons and how people are. So, but yeah, I think it's just a matter of knowing what you're getting yourself into, and that's where counsel comes in. That's going to help a
Right.
lot, because I think you get any 2 decent people, they can make a marriage work. It's at the end of the day, it's not just if you magically find the right person, you're just going to have an easy marriage. No, it's work, and both of you are going to have to make adjustments. And I think it's all about how you do marriage, more than even just who gets married. But there is something to say for personalities and things. And your parents, they know you really well. If you're a guy, your mom knows girls, and she knows you.
Right.
And you need to, we have strong opinions about like our boys and the kind of girls that they need, because of their personalities and how they are. And, and there's probably, I think we probably know what we're talking about. So if your parents are on board, her parents are on board, talk to wise counsel in the church, a pastor and other people. And, just because 2 people legally can marry somebody doesn't mean that they should.
Right.
And you want to make sure you're compatible. And I don't think that has to take real long, but I think there's something about knowing somebody for at least a year before you make a decision that big.
I look at questions like that, like, there's no way you could even give a general answer or, on that, because it kind of reminds me sometimes people will come after a loved one's died, especially like a spouse or something. They'll say, how long am I supposed to grieve? Mm-hmm. However long you need. Mm-hmm. If that's a month and you're now thinking about moving on, that doesn't mean you didn't love your husband or wife or whoever it is that's deceased. That's how you grieve. If it's 2 years, well, it's 2 years. It's funny we look at other people's expectations of what we're supposed. Why am I not ready to marry? It's been 5 months. Well, because you're not ready to marry.
Yeah.
But after 5 months, I'm supposed to. No, that's not how that works. And so, you don't. I would advise, don't set a timeline that you make a decision because it's the end of the timeline not because your hearts are knit together and you're ready to commit
Right.
for life. So whenever that moment is, if that's 3 months in and you're confident and you have the blessing of the parents, well, that's 3 months in, I mean, we all can think of stories of people who met, married very quickly, and they're still married through the years. But we've also met people who met, married quickly, and they're divorced. So it's not like if you do A, B, and C, you'll always get the same result. There's a relationship involved. And so remember, dating is with the prospect of marriage. That's how
Right.
biblical dating is.
Right.
When our children date, they're looking for a future spouse. They're not looking for someone to go hang out and have pizza with.
Right.
That's not what dating is with the marriage in mind. And when both individuals know that that's what is for them and they're confident, well then, that's where engagement would come in. And I advise a short engagement, 6 months or whatever. Not too short where you can't plan a wedding because it's a big
Right.
deal.
Right.
But those are things you have to just consider. Remember, you're working with the relationship. Any thoughts over here, Pastor Theo?
Yeah, so I think that if it's a young man and a young woman, it may need to be a little bit longer simply because you want to find out about this other person. I mean, they're both young, and typically younger people, they haven't experienced much of the world. They haven't experienced much of like what's going on and how people react to certain things. So you would want to have, I would call them immature, but you would want them to mature in thinking,
Yeah.
all right, the goal is marriage here, so we want to get married. So it may take them a little bit longer. I wouldn't put a number on it, but
Right.
if it were like, a 35-year-olds getting married, well, it would probably be a little bit shorter because, they've seen things, they've been in church for a while, they know a little more. They're more sophisticated. And the same thing, just going up, even if it was 50-year-olds, I mean, probably 50-year-olds, if they were going to get married, it probably would take even less time.
Right.
The wedding probably wouldn't be that big, because it's exciting to be married, but they have just a few people coming over, and but they can make it as big as they want. Typically, younger people, they have like a big wedding, so maybe like a longer engagement after they sealed the deal, like the man has asked her to marry, and she said yes. I think that the goal is to be married for life. And they just got to find out about each other before that.
All right, let's move on. This one kind of was already addressed earlier, so we don't have to spend much time on it. But any thoughts to continue this would be, how do you win the hearts of your kids? Again, we already touched on their individuals, find out what they like. But any advice on winning the heart of a child, whether it's a little kid or a teenager?
You can go ahead.
Be real in what you believe. Don't be hypocrites. I think the number one thing that we've seen through the ministry is the kids that walk away are the ones who their parents are trying to have this persona like that isn't real, and the kids know what their parents are like at home, and it's totally different than what they're trying to portray, and it's just a miserable home. So they want nothing to do with it. So yeah, just be real.
Yeah, and
authentic.
kids desperately want and need mom and dad to be happy and to love each other. And that's where a lot of their security is. And when they're living in a war zone, they have no security, and they're wanting to escape. So the thing is, if dad's making mommy happy and mommy's making dad happy, and they love their brothers and sisters too, and you've got a good relationship there, I think that's one of the best things. And yeah, the kids who seem the most anxious to hit the road as soon as they're able to are ones that just had a miserable home life.
Yeah.
So. You can't, and when it comes to winning their heart, it's like, well, if I do this and I do that for them, well, that's what parents do when they're in divorce. That's typically when they spoil their kids and they start buying them everything they want. If you want to get the biggest Christmas and the most Christmas presents you ever had, typically when you get that, it's when your parents are getting divorced.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're overcompensating, trying to bring you happiness, when the truth is, those kids were happier when they got less presents and mom and dad were getting along.
Right.
So you have to have a happy home, I think, is probably the best thing.
Yeah, and again, let's reword that question a little differently in a different scenario is, how do I make a girl like me? Well, we don't have it. Like, how do I make my kid love me?
Smile.
That's something that you need relationship help here, you're dealing with the person. get to know that person and, you know, what they like and that to where, you know, to where they're a teenager and you can look at each other and we can communicate nonverbal and we're watching each other and we're having a good time. That has to be built. And you don't get that by spanking them enough. And you know, you don't get that by having the rules on the wall, and if they violate them, you know, you blow the whistle, throw the flag. No, it's a relationship that you're building, and just like it wouldn't make sense to ask that in a dating scenario. How do I make a girl like me? Well, that question qualifies you for not dating.
Yeah.
You're not ready. So how do I now? If the heart of a child is wayward and going the wrong direction, you know, it's get some godly help at counseling. I think there's things you can do, but again, remember, ultimately, you're going to know best as parent. And maybe you're just being too hard at the moment, or maybe you're not being hard enough, and you're going to have to be the one that sits down and makes that decision. And nothing goes further than being honest with your kids and saying, your daddy loves you, and I don't know if I'm expressing that right. What can I do to help you know that I love you? Let's go on a date tomorrow. Let's go whatever. And it's not throwing money at it. It's sometimes just time. Let's go on a walk. Let's go on a bike ride. Whatever, you know, it is. And it means a lot when they know dad cares or mom cares. And so it's building of relationships. Moving on to the next one, if I can get my phone there. Number 6, how do I undo all the bad influences that my kids saw before I started serving God? We're kind of all second generation Christians, right? Are you second generation as well?
Yeah.
So we were fortunate to be born into Christian homes where mom and dad, you know, or grandparents are the ones that actually were saved later in life and have those. Not that we were perfect, but we were, you know, the worst thing I saw on TV was Little House on the Prairie. I mean, that's how I grew up. You know, that's my world. And so, but my advice would be, if you do get saved later in life, especially after kids are born, and they've seen both sides, be genuine. Sit them down, have a family meeting, and say, Daddy was wrong. You know, we messed up. And, you know, set a course forward and say, you know, and hold yourself accountable. You know, we're not perfect, but we want to try to follow the scriptures and get planted in a local church and teach your children to look up to them and say, you know, we want to be like the local church and what they're teaching and get plugged in. And you'll be surprised when you ask your kids to help you be better, how it makes them it gives them all of a sudden wind in their sail. We're going to start soul winning. We're going to start reading our Bible. We're going to church, and get them behind that as well. And then, you know, and then I think we had mentioned earlier where you said, make sure when that happens that you don't change again.
Right.
And
You only
change
get one
again.
chance.
Yeah. Right.
One change. One
Yeah,
chance
and
change.
one thing too, because like, you know, depending on how old your kids are, you know, thankfully our kids have been raised the same way their whole lives, but I've seen several families over the years who, you know, the parents got saved after their kids were growing up a little bit or teenagers. And, you know, one thing that I know is always a struggle in that situation, but I've seen parents succeed, is especially if it was like a really bad home life. You know, even if you get saved, you still have that old man that's there that might show itself every now and then. Right. And a lot of times too, it can almost be traumatic for kids when they see old daddy show himself again. But that's where you have to, you know, like you said before, you as a father, you have to admit, you know, hey, I still have this in me. This is hard, you know, and, you know, we're trying to do this, and you guys have got to make sure you do it better. That you don't ever, you know, that your kids don't ever see the things that you had to see. And so, you know, let them see that there's a real change, but, you know, don't act like that old daddy doesn't exist anymore, because that old man is always still there and able to show its ugly face. But what kids can't handle is changing over and over again. You know, jumping from church to church, you know, you're all hardcore one day, liberal the next day, and then back being hardcore again. They can't handle that. And especially if you have teenagers, you know, it's really hard if a girl has to start dressing a certain way and she gets grief from her friends or other family members and things like that. And if you humiliate them when you keep changing. So, you know, just, they'll let you do it once, but that's about it.
I would just say, I mean, I was saved before the kids were born, but I was worldly, you know, and I wasn't fully on board with serving the Lord. So when, like Pants, for example, or the music I listened to, you know, once I was in my own heart, like, I want to do this for the Lord, I would tell them, you know, I'm doing this for the Lord. You're young and you're going to be better, like you said. I'm so excited that you're, you know, 13, 14 years old and you're going to get all these rewards in heaven if you're, you know, in your 40s and you're still doing this for God. You know, just letting them come along with me, I guess, and seeing how joyful it is, what a blessing it is to be a Christian, and, you know, allowing them to see that genuinely.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
And sometimes kids who get to see both sides like that, when the parents do a successful transition, where, you know, they're never going to be perfect, but where they, you know, they do good, they're unlikely to go to the worldliness. In fact, sometimes ones who never saw it are more likely, because they've never seen the ugly side of it, and so they get drawn to it, deceived by it. So that's why if you started late with that, again, as long as you change it this one time and you stick to it, you've got a really good opportunity to turn out a really good generation.
All right, next question. How to deal with unsaved family? What's some thoughts on that? Everybody has unsaved family.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, try to get them saved and spend as much time as you can with them. And a lot of times they'll reject you because they'll be like, "Oh, but I know you. You know, you used to be this way." And it is difficult to give the gospel to unsaved family. But you know, some of the family, if you're consistent and you stick with it, you know, there's at least one or two that will actually, they'll understand, they'll listen to you, okay, and they do get saved because of, you know, your tenacity, or you just keep going, you know, you love them, and yeah, if they're just normally unsaved, okay, there's some that are just like, you can't reach them, I don't want my children around them, and that's my stance on that. I don't want them in my house. There's some family members that have crossed the line and they are not even allowed to be in the house. So, I keep that fence there. They're not allowed there. But just normal unsaved family members. You know, I don't want to burn any bridges with any of my family. You know, I love them. I want them to come. But if they've rejected God, then I don't want them in the house. But the other ones, I mean, yeah, just be around them and try to preach the gospel to them. So.
Yeah, my goal with family is always to try to keep family relationships strong. I can't imagine anything worse than my kids hating each other someday. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, too, where you do need to be careful is, there's a difference between somebody who's lost, liberal, whatever, but they will respect where you're at and it won't undermine you, and then one who's like militantly against you. Right. So when someone's family, when it's an aunt, uncle, cousin, your kids are automatically going to love them, which is exactly what you want, and they're going to automatically have some influence over them. So I think as long as they're not trying to influence your family away from the things of God and away from me as a parent, and I've got a lot of family that's a lot different than us on things, and we have a good relationship, but I also have never felt like they're trying to turn our kids against us.
Right.
And that's when I think you gotta really draw some hard lines with especially unsaved family members and stuff. But I have a strong personality. She has a strong personality. We're both the oldest in our family too, so we're just kind of natural leaders in our family. We've also got the most kids, so we kind of set the agenda in a lot of ways where we go. So it's like for us and our family and our personality, we're kind of a force of influence where we're around that kind of dominates the other side. And so we're not afraid to use that and be around them. But some people aren't like that. They're not as outgoing And so if that's not who you are, and if you are someone who's just a little more influenced instead of influential, then yeah, you have to, you got to make that decision for your family. You might have one kid too who is maybe more drawn to these things. And if you see him getting really close to this one family member that's all into that stuff, those are the things you have to pay attention to. So always shoot for strong families, but at the same time, you should never let them undermine you.
Yeah, and then another thing that would maybe help in dealing with unsafe family would be never expect them to understand your values. Mm-hmm. That's where a lot of parents go wrong. They don't understand why I'm homeschooling or having so many children, or won't let them wear this, or don't let them do that. Don't set the expectations that they're going to understand. But like you said, there's some that won't agree, but they're not going to undermine.
Right.
Okay, hey, these are our wishes, okay, great. But I've had scenarios where parents would show their grandkids pictures of mom in a pair of pants and say, see, your mom used to wear pants. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
So you're like, whoa, why are you trying to undermine the standards that we're setting in our home? So it's something that you do have to deal carefully with. Don't try to get them to understand. Just get them to at least respect the values that you hold, and know those lines. Like, hey, mom, dad, whoever that family member is, we want to come over, but if alcohol's there, we have to leave. Yeah. So we do ask, and you can set those boundaries, but don't ask them like, if you ever drink alcohol again, I can't. They're not living the Christian life. Mm-hmm. They're unsaved. They're not even. We're just asking them to respect our beliefs and the influence that they'll have. And so be careful with that.
Yeah, well, we've had family too, when I was growing up, that they were like really cautious to make sure if they watched something that was something we were allowed to watch. So even though they didn't have that rule, they respected my dad and his rules, and they wanted to make sure with us. But then sometimes you'd have people, they don't care, oh, it's okay if you guys watch it. Right there, that's the one you gotta watch, when they won't respect your rules.
Yeah. Okay. How to pick your battles with your kids. We don't obviously want everything they do wrong to be punished, but what's the process that you could advise or help in choosing that battle? And again, this might be a ladies' question, because a lot of those battles are fought while we're at work, and we come home and here, deal with your child. Like this is what they've been doing all day. But any thoughts on how to choose those battles?
Well, we have negotiables in our house and non-negotiables. So the non-negotiables are what we will choose the battle over. What would be some of the non-negotiables in our house, like church?
Yeah, there's certain things too, like some of our little ones right now. When they throw a fit during church.
Yeah.
It's just like
automatic punishment.
I make sure that you are going to get in trouble. That was with all our kids growing up. Just public meltdowns. I would tell them, there's not any getting out of it. I don't care how good you are later on. When we get home, you are getting spanked. I don't know if this was maybe a good idea, good theologically to teach them, but we called the public meltdowns unpardonable sins.
We did.
You will
it was
be,
the McMurtry
you will be
unpardonable
spanked.
sin.
And we made a really big deal about that, because we wanted to be able to go in public, we wanted to be able to eat in restaurants, and it not be a nightmare.
We want to be able to sit through church.
Because we knew a lot of parents, they just wouldn't go out to eat with their kids, because their kids were always bad. And I'm like, I like going out to eat. We're gonna have to figure out how to deal with this. So there are certain things that we do. We just make a really big deal out of, and then you have to deal with it. There's when it comes to things that aren't battles, I don't know. That's probably more.
Well, this is, for example, I remember being at a family function and all the kids opened presents, and our kids wanted to open their gifts and play with it because they just got a present. We're like, sure, that's fine. So one of our family members decided to make a battle over not letting their kid open the present, like take out the gift and play with it. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And it was a huge.
They didn't want to deal with the mess.
They didn't want to deal with the mess. So that's a silly battle in my mind. It's just little stuff like that. So it was a huge, long, drawn-out process where they had this huge battle over not letting their kid play with their new Christmas toy. So that's what I would consider a silly battle.
Yeah, you got to be understanding as a parent, when all the other little kids are playing with their new Christmas present, and you are just expected to just hold it in the box. That's hard for a 3 and 4 year old kid to deal with.
Yeah.
You're not
That's a silly
accomplishing
battle.
anything
That's
by
a silly battle.
making them do that. Let them open the stinking present. And
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes as parents, we choose a battle and then we have to back down because we realize that's asking
is
too much.
silly, no.
Or, you say, I want you to sit still. And then you remember, they've been strapped in a car seat for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? Go ahead and run around. I'm asking too much from them. And so know who you're dealing with. Choose your battles. I liken it to the Holy Spirit, to the Lord. He's our Heavenly Father. He uses our parenting experience as an illustration of how we are to our children. He's like, and you're sinful. How much better he is to us. And when we get saved, he doesn't throw everything out and say, fix it tonight or else I'm sending lightning bolts. He deals with it one thing at a time. And so don't try. We're not trying to get perfection from day one. We're dealing with issues. And so that's again why I think parents are the only ones qualified to discipline, because I might not be dealing with something that's bothering you because I'm dealing with something else right now, and I can't do both right now. I'm working on right now just not having a public meltdown. We have private meltdowns,
Yes.
but we're going to have public so I'm working on this one, but maybe I'm not working on slamming the door or whatever, that maybe that's bothering you that we shouldn't let them do. That's not the battle right now. And I'm glad the Lord does that with us. And that, think back to your earlier days as a Christian when God used you. Maybe when you started soul winning, and yet you look back and you had all this sin in your life that you weren't aware of, and God still used you, even though he was still working, but God chooses his battles with you, and the Holy Spirit's convicting you, and he's working one thing at a time. You get victory, he gives you another. And you know what? Today, hopefully he's still doing that in our hearts today, because none of us have arrived to perfection. And so I'm glad the things he's working in my heart today, maybe a couple years ago I was unaware of, but he used me then. And so as a parent, don't be like, what am I going to do with you? All these problems, and you leave a child hopeless. Just one battle. And then when they do good on that one, like you said, only 2 spankings today when you get home. Wow, high five, that's so cool. Whatever you can do to encourage and reward the good behavior rather than only addressing bad behavior. How about this? How do you homeschool your children when you have younger children? This would probably ladies. Some helpful tips to maybe like a mom who their oldest is just starting to be educated, but they have littler ones that are distracting. What would be some things you could do to help in that?
I've homeschooled when we've had several little ones, and I remember with the first one, and then we had 2, or maybe 3 still toddlers and infants. I would just homeschool when the rest were taking a nap, like during the day, or if some can sit in a high chair and they're not getting away, or ways that I can contain the little ones and give my best focus to the one that's being schooled. And then I've also learned to just homeschool throughout the year. I know at the beginning I was just doing like what institutions do from August to June, but I've learned that if I do that for myself, I can get a little stressed out and just pressured on the time. I think that's something to be aware of as far as time. Just find the best time to spend with the kid that needs it. And then I've even done ones where my homeschool is adjusted, where we just do reading for the day, and the little ones were all in the bed together, and the one that needed the schoolwork we were all just together doing it. But nap times was always a big thing. Where can I get that one-on-one with them and give my best time with them, and what was the most important thing we needed to work on? We'll do it then, and then if it didn't work out, then just get creative. I would get creative with it.
All right, I'm going to pass the microphone to Robin. We have 7 children, and we have 3 that have graduated. She knew she's not getting by. She doesn't like to speak. But can you think of some things that would be helpful to parents who maybe have the little one and they're not sure how to balance that plate?
Well, if you have older kids, they can help teach some of the younger ones while you work with maybe a middle child. Use your older kids to help if that's available. If not, like Felicia said, be creative and find something for your younger child to do put your pack and play right there, so you know they're not wandering off, and teach your older kids.
Yeah, I remember watching.
Yeah.
I remember watching you when you would teach, and I'd come in, and you're in the middle, and they're doing their school. So everybody starts school on day one. All right, you got 3-year-old. You're in school today, but they're not. And so you're giving them a color. Oh, you just give them, pointless tasks to do. Color this page, draw, here, and you can even give them the, in the beginning. The kindergarten, they're learning to make their letters. Well, you can give them a sheet as well, and you're not really working with them. They're just being distracted while you're working with this one. And what you'll also learn is your younger start picking up things you didn't realize when you go to teach them, they actually are ahead, and they're learning things that you didn't think they were catching. So I know that's something I've seen Robin do. Any points for?
Well, I think parents, when they start out, they think that homeschooling is like 8 to 3. And when you are doing a kindergartner, it's literally at the most 2 hours. It's barely any time. So I did nap time. I'd lay the little ones down for a nap. I'd focus, because with kindergarten, it's consistency is what matters. And my husband, he told me from the beginning, he's like, we're going to be consistent when it comes to homeschooling. We're not going to be in the ministry, be one of these ministry families that gets way behind with our kids' schooling. This is number one important. So that's always been a priority in our home. So every day, just 1 hour or 2 a day in kindergarten, they're reading by the end of the year. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
So.
Amen. Good answers. Moving on, let's see here. What is the greatest thing you've learned as a parent? We'll start with the McMurtry couple. You can.
That's impossible to even pinpoint.
The greatest thing I've learned about parenting, or the great lesson.
Well, it says the greatest thing you've learned as a parent. So
Okay, the greatest thing I've learned as a parent.
I'm not as strong of a Christian as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Because when you have kids, like, everything bad comes out. I have a temper. I'm impatient.
Yeah, you.
Keep going.
Yeah, you don't. I think it teaches you to rely on the Holy Spirit better,
Yes.
because, like I said, all these questions people are asking, you can tell kind of where they're coming from. People, it's a intimidating thing, raising a child. It's intimidating,
It's
homeschooling a
overwhelming
kid,
sometimes.
and there are so many unknowns. And the thing is, you can, before you have any kids, you have all these plans. Your kids are never going to talk back. They're always going to sit through church. They're going to do good in school and all these, but they are going to throw so many curveballs at you. And
It keeps you humble.
they throw you for a loop, and you really, you learn to, it's a job that you do with somebody working against you a lot of times. But you can overcome it. You're the parent, and but you have to get you praying for wisdom and guidance and strength and the whole 9 yards. And the Lord will help you do it. I think at the end of the day, the thing I keep in mind is just like you said at the beginning, we're competing with the world, and that's always my mindset. Once my kids hit a certain age, I will not be legally able to stop them from doing whatever they want. So I have to find a way to make them want to do this. So I've got to make this turn out good. I got to make sure they're happy. I need to make sure that I need to teach them the best that they can, so they have opportunities. And but yeah, I think the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Absolutely.
And there's wisdom in that. In learning a foreign language, you go through those stages where you don't know anything, and then you learn a few introductory phrases, and you start calling yourself fluent. You're like, I speak really good, and you're like, and anybody who speaks the language is like, yeah, no, and then you go through that stage where you realize, I don't know anything, and that's when you genuinely can learn. And as a parent, everybody knows those know-it-all parents that don't have kids.
Right.
That
Or
just
have 2, 3, and 4-year-olds.
Yeah, they just need a parent or a spanking. Or if that was my teen, I'm never gonna let my teenagers have a cell phone.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And I used to say that, and my teenagers have cell phones.
And then they start driving.
I know. Yeah. And you're like, call me every 10 minutes.
Yeah. But so our oldest is 21, and the second one's almost 20, and and I'm really happy with how they've turned out. But then when I look at it, I kind of look at the product. I like it. It's like, how'd you get it?
Right.
I don't really know how that happened.
The grace of God.
So one of the things I was thinking about is how even though you're not talking to them all the time, there are things that they learn from you, just how you do things, how you respond to things, like the nonverbal communication. They pick up on that stuff, and
More
that's
is caught than taught.
I think that is the biggest thing right there.
yeah.
That I think all these questions that you're hearing right there, a lot of these questions that we get, what I'm learning more and more about people who are not raised in Christian homes and just raised according to this world, they don't know how to live life. And that's the great thing about growing up in a good Christian home where there is happiness, is it's none of these big things we're talking about. It's those little things. It's literally how you respond, how you react. They are picking up on all that stuff. And if you're doing it right, they're learning from it. But I don't know how to articulate what all I'm doing. It's what I naturally do. But like my son Jason can like just imitate me to the T.
It's fun.
And it's like, it cracks me up because I'm like,
He didn't even know he did.
I'll watch you do it. I was like, I didn't even know I did that, but apparently, that does remind me of me. And so it is because they're picking these things up. So we teach them so much more than we realize.
Yeah.
And it's those things right there.
And I feel bad when they're doing something that I used to do, and I'm like, you should. And then I think about it. Okay, and that's when I have to pick my battles. I don't want to say something where they're like, but Dad, I saw you do it, and they have this long, drawn out, elaborate explanation because they saw me do something, and that's why I'm doing it. Because if they say that, then I'm like, well, I guess no spanking. I mean, I guess you're okay.
I guess we both get a spanking.
Right? Yeah, that's right. So, that was one of the things I've learned. I'm still learning. They pick up on those things, and then I can't be mad at it because there are things that I've done, and it's like, oh, so that's where you got that from. Or it's from my spouse. They learn, oh, okay, so now I have to learn how to know my wife better because I'm seeing this, and it's like, well, how to reconcile that in my mind?
That's why Allie's so crazy.
It's like, yeah.
Because she's just like me.
I'm always reaping what she sowed.
She'll look at me and be like, that's your daughter. That's because of you.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from just kind of generally is the things we've learned about being a parent is we're still learning.
Yes,
Yeah.
And that's the key.
absolutely.
You don't have all the answers.
No.
It's not 3 spankings and we're done. It's a constant learning process that we're developing young men and young women. We're working on our marriage. There's a relationship process that is ever evolving and growing, and we're just directing that any which way we can. And when we see it going too far to the right, we pull it. Too far to the left, we pull it. And so you can't just. It's not like you wake up in the morning and you check the boxes, okay, everything's still in order, so we should have a great day today. No. There are relationships, there's emotions. And so that sounds like, a good answer for parents that are, don't feel like, because you don't have all the answers, parents who are raising good kids do. No one has all the answers. We're learning
We're learning
together.
every day.
Yeah.
New situation.
All right, so these last 3 questions, and some of them can get a little
Dicey.
Dicey would be a good word, yeah. So here's one. It says, what scripture would you use to advise on infertility for couples that are trying to have children? And then it's a secondary question to that, says, should they seek medical advice?
Yeah.
Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. My verse is, they that be whole need not a physician. And if you can't have kids, you're not whole. You can go to a doctor. It's not wrong to go to a doctor. But, and at the same time too, another scripture verse is about going to the elders of the church and anointing them with oil, laying hands. I strongly believe in that. And you can't make anybody do that, but I've known so many people who were not able to have kids, and they just, for some reason, they won't do that. And I think it's because it's kind of a humbling thing to do. But that typically humbling yourself before God helps a lot. And everyone I've ever seen do that has had a baby shortly after. I just believe in that. I mean,
And women that were told by the doctor they could not have babies.
Not just.
They were anointed by the men in the church and prayed over, and within a year they had a baby. So.
Yeah, I would say pray. Make sure you're trusting God, because whenever I think of infertility, I think of Hannah, who for many years She could not have a child. She was barren, but she decided that she was going to give her son to the Lord, train him up, and after he's weaned, to hand him over. And that's Samuel, you know. So, and that story is in 1 Samuel chapter 1. But I mean, Hannah, she's a great example of just a humble mother. She has her mind set on serving the Lord, and she wants her son, her child, to serve the Lord. And so, I would encourage any woman that's dealing with infertility to pray and seek God. I mean,
Yeah.
And she said that she got him because she asked.
Because,
Right.
yeah.
And and one thing too, and not to be harsh or mean or anything too, that was a situation where she was just barren. She didn't do anything cause that. A lot of times too, we have women that they've done a bunch of things to themselves, over the years, trying to prevent, that does great damage, and then they change their mind. And I do believe God can forgive, and they can still have hope, but you can only damage yourself so much, and then you can't be too surprised when something doesn't get fixed. And I think that could be a slightly different situation where maybe you said no to God so many times and you were disobedient for so long, he might have decided, I'm not ever giving you one. It should never stop you from asking and
Right.
praying for forgiveness, and I'd still do the same thing, but I'm not gonna. I feel like sometimes when people come asking for help, it's after they've done so many things. I mean, you've done surgeries and everything. It's just like, really, now you're gonna ask? It's
Yeah.
you should have thought about this a long time ago.
Yeah, Psalm 127, verse 3 says, "Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward." And Scripture is very clear that life comes from God. He opens the womb, he blesses. But not everybody has that. I know family of my family that can't have children, and it's not that they don't desire to have it, but think of it outside of that perspective. Think of it like a single guy praying for the right lady, and he just can never seem to find that right one, or a single lady, and they're in their 30s and 40s, and Lord, please give me a husband that will lead the home and I can follow. And sometimes it's God's will that you not marry. It's God's will that there be no children. And so I think you have to approach it with that prayer of faith. But, if God does not give it, I still serve him. I still worship him. And God's right either way. You can't look at it like God shortchanged you. And that if it's not God's will that you failed him or he's punishing you, you have to look at it like he knows best. And for whatever reason, may it not be because you didn't ask. May it not be because you've mutilated yourself prior. May it not be for whatever. You've done it all, and you say, like Paul with his prayer request, 3 times he asked, and he says, you know what? God said his grace is sufficient. Right. And so that's one of those prayer requests that I think it's right to ask. It's right to get the church involved. But, then leave that up to, nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And so when it comes to the medical advice, there's nothing wrong with going to the doctor and saying, hey, what's wrong with me? Look me over. Be no different if you said, hey, preacher, my kidney's not feeling right. Should I go to the doctor for kidney? Yes. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong is asking a pastor for medical advice. That's
Never go to a pastor for medical advice.
So
Even if they have a doctor in front of their name.
Yeah. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? But so that's a big question I know weighs on the heart that people often don't raise their hand and ask, but they do think that. And so I appreciate you taking that time. Here's some other ones that could be dicey. Should there ever be a time that married couples take a break from having children?
I think your answer was good that you said earlier.
Yeah, so we had kind of talked about this, like, where's this question going to go? And, I'm not sure the direction the question was asked. But when it comes to the bedroom door, that's where my counseling stops. I don't enter into the bedroom of a married couple. That's not something that biblically we are even allowed to do. That's the home. So if it comes to, contraceptives, if it comes to abortions, we open our Bibles and say that's wrong.
Right.
Right? If it comes to planning naturally, you know, how and what, that's between a husband and a wife, and that's only between a husband and a wife. And sometimes those decisions may be made for health reasons.
Right.
Sometimes it may be made for the sanity of the wife. You know, she's just not ready to have another child. I remember we were, I don't remember which baby it was, but she had just delivered, and it was, you know, not our first, it was third or fourth, and just as soon as the baby comes out, I'm holding myself, all right, honey, when are we having our next one? You know, she doesn't say much except for that.
Right.
Then she spoke.
Well, I believe very strongly that husbands should listen to their wives very closely when it comes to that, because they're the ones that go through all the physical trauma of everything. And it's, you know, the big verses people use for having kids, like be fruitful and multiply. Okay, well, my wife, she said 8 kids. I think she's done that. No matter what you say, she's done that. You know, so it's like, but you know, there is no specific number that's
People
given.
want a number. Like, what is the
there's
number?
Some people have very traumatic pregnancies. You know, some it's not that big of a deal. You know, it's some women it's really hard for them to get pregnant. Some it's really easy. You know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm supposed to give honor unto my wife as unto the weaker vessel.
Right.
So, you know, her having kids doesn't hurt me physically, but it does hurt. So I've got to be aware of that. And, you know, I might just really want a dozen kids or something like that. But, you know, I'm not the one whose body is going to get torn to pieces through all that. And so, you know, there is some common sense, and it's not a number. It's not a specific amount of time. But, you know, women do need to heal. They do need to recover. You know, it's a big job, giving birth, nursing, taking care of all those kids, and you can really overwhelm them to a point that can cause them to crack mentally and could affect them physically, to where something might end up happening where they can't have any more. They have to go get some kind of surgery to save their life. So the thing is, because for some reason you got in a really big hurry to have a whole bunch of kids thinking you had to fulfill some commandment, that you're actually going to end up having less kids.
Do you think
as a
some of that's
result.
bad preaching, though? Do you think a preacher should ever tell someone, you should have as many kids as you're physically able to?
So I think it goes back
Yeah,
to
it
that.
does.
Yeah.
It's just,
That the bedroom door is where your advice should stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because marriage is honorable and all, and the bed undefiled.
I will never question a woman in our church if I feel like she's gone a long time without getting pregnant, and be like, you know, her husband, like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
No.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what they're dealing with. Sometimes too, you know, you have people too, maybe even like people who are newly saved, and they're like about to get divorced,
Right.
and their marriage is hanging on by a thread, and then they get pregnant. It's like, you know, that's not going to necessarily make things better. Now you're you know, it's so again, it's just, you know, you have to, you know, use a lot of common sense with things. And it seems like everybody's answer to everything is just, you know, get her pregnant again. And it's like, you know, you're allowed to space these things out a little bit. We know not just what causes it, but we know when it's more likely to take place. And it is a major physical burden, and you need to take care of your wife.
I think also, you know, depending on who and how that question, these are anonymous questions, but sometimes that question could be asked in a wrong way, meaning like, so if I have to have 8 kids, why doesn't she have 8 kids? Like it's a
Right.
punishment. And if she has to have 8 kids because I have 8 kids, or if I'm having,
Then they're a burden. Then
Right.
it's not even a blessing, it's
right.
a burden.
And I think they look at like, well, if I can't wear pants, why is she allowed to?
Right.
And it's like, well, you know, we do what we do because this is the decisions
Right.
we've made, and we have scriptural context for it, a family unit. We've decided some things because we want that, not because we're trying to outdo someone down the road. And then when they don't live up to that standard, it's like they're getting away with something that we couldn't get away with. And if I'd have known, I wouldn't have done it. Like, that's a wrong outlook on life, and that's a wrong outlook on the family unit.
And you have women who don't want to have babies because they're interested in material things and looking a certain way, and you know, and that's terrible. But you know, there's some women they're not wanting to get pregnant right now because they're trying to survive and live.
Yeah,
and not be dead.
And as husbands, we need to be aware of that. I think we're guilty of punishing our wives for having the children. You change the diaper, the baby's crying, you feed him, you do this, and then by the way, you're having another one.
You definitely have to know your wife. I mean, the Bible teaches you to dwell within the knowledge.
Right.
You got to know what's going on in her mind, what's going on with her body, emotionally, everything. It's kind of the husband's job to manage all those emotions, all of that. And there's a lot of emotions when it comes to childbearing and child rearing, and it's both the man and the wife that have to make that decision. Don't rely on the pastor to tell you, should I, have more children? Should I stop having children? It's like, well, that's not really the pastor's job. To all the men, know your wife, know what's going on in her mind, and you make that decision. I'm interested to know why a woman or why a man would ask the pastor permission to have children or permission to not have children, because it's like,
I think it's usually permission to not.
Because
It's like
I've heard preaching. I'm supposed to have as many as I can.
We're getting killed over here. I mean, these kids are ruling the house, and we need a break. It's
Please
like
give us permission for a break.
and it's So I think that's a lot of it. Is people, they just get so overwhelmed, but it's just like use some common sense, get these things under control, and there's been times too where she's felt like, I'm done, but then,
I wasn't.
later she's like, yeah, I want to have another baby.
Well, I've had to take some breaks because of health. I had chronic diseases that I needed to be treated with medicine that could cause stillbirth. Now, some people would say I was in sin for doing that, but because I did that and it was cured, I went on to have 2 children after, not having to worry about passing that on, because I had passed that on to one of them, and he had to get treated with, it's the same thing. So we chose to take a small gap, and that's our biggest gap, is a 5-year gap, because we didn't want to have a stillbirth, we didn't want to have a miscarriage. So
Yeah, and then too, anyone offering judgment into your home, whether it's a
Right.
church member or someone not even related to your ministry or your family, it's none of their business. They have
Right.
no grounds, just as we have no grounds, and even the advice we're giving is just saying make those decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, what we would say is, don't do it because finances.
Yeah.
You never can afford a
Right.
baby. That the Lord will provide that. So don't do it because of lack of faith. Don't do it because you're fearful of, I don't think I'll be a good mom or a good dad. Follow the commands, be fruitful, be multiplied. That's the purpose of marriage. Children are great. But when it comes to, that number, that's where you're going to look to your husband, wife. They're going to sit there as a couple. The pastor's not in that room.
Right.
You're making that decision. And God, you can still make it, and God can override it, can't he? We're not going to have a child for 2 years, and surprise, surprise, we're having a baby. Right?
And I'll just say this about myself: there is no pastor, there's no internet figure, there's no judgmental woman that can in any way influence the number of kids we have, or even make me feel good or bad about it. She's the only one that I consult.
we have
with these
never
things.
asked anyone about from the
it's
day
just
we
like-
got
and
married.
so you have clowns out there that give their opinions about things, but it means nothing. I mean, I see anyone, including pastors, talking about our family size as like that drugged out guy yelling at people on the streets, that doesn't know what's going on. Just like I'm not influenced by that yelling and screaming, whatever they're saying. I just think they have no influence on me. It's the same thing, because it is that we're kind of irrelevant in that area. We're able to give advice, and we're able to show what the Bible says on certain things. I do know one thing: if you get pregnant, you need to bring that baby
Right.
into the world. I know, because I know thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
I know that's a life. And
Right.
and I know you need to raise that baby and take care of it and provide and all those things. And so, there's some common sense stuff there
Yeah, and bad advice is why I think, maybe those kind of questions could be asked. And here's another reason people would have children. How many do I have to be qualified to pastor? And it's like boom, boom, boom. All right, can I get ordained? You're like, it's not how it works.
In our church, we call the second child the qualifier. Because everyone's like, it's got to have at least 2 kids. So whenever they have their second one, hey, it's the qualifier. And it's
The real question is, which one of yours is the disqualifier?
Yeah.
Kelly.
And we're joking when we call the kid the qualifier. We're making fun of people.
Right,
when
and
we do that.
that's a wrong reason to have children. Because I want to pastor, and so let's have as many kids as we can. How about we want to raise a family?
Exactly.
Because and I think that's maybe what's missing in society is that family backbone. So as a family unit, the church may fall apart, but we're still a unit. Family, outside family and friends may come and go, but we're still a family unit. We left and we've cleaved one to another, and we're focusing on this. People may not like our opinions, like you said, outside influences. Doesn't really matter if you think I'm raising my teenagers wrong. We're still a family unit, and we're going to be sitting around a Thanksgiving dinner table. We're working on cultivating what we want that to look like, whether you agree with that or not, because we have a goal in mind. So get a family mindset and think, what family unit do I want to see in 10 years from now or 20 years from now? And make decisions based on that, not how many kids are they requiring me to have, how many times do I have to spank them, do I holler at them, do I ground them? All those things are going to be made in the home as to case by case. And this is the last question, and this kind of wraps it up with the child rearing part. Is there any advice or discernment on the balance of being disciplinarian and letting your kid just be a kid? Any thought on that?
I would say it goes back to knowing your children. I mean, some are going to be more playful than others. Some are going to be more mischievous than others. And you kind of have to tailor your disciplinarianism, if I can use a term, to the child. Because you want to train the child. You love the child. You want to train them to be a better person. And so it kind of depends on the child. Sometimes the child just needs that, 21st spanking of the day. And then you have other children, like you mentioned before, that you're really sweet, and one spanking a day is all that they need, and they're a better person for it. Whereas the other child, you got to give them a whole bunch. So knowing the children is where you derive that balance, I think.
Yeah, and it's a matter of remembering what it was like for you when you were a kid. And it's some parents are so set on just being strict. I want to be strict. That they'll bring their kids to church, and then they plop them on the pew before church starts and make them sit there. It's like, well, kids want to run around and play.
Right.
Let kids run around and play.
And now church is a punishment.
Right, exactly. And don't, just being strict does not mean you're going to turn out good kids. In fact, it can make, if you're just strict, you can have miserable kids. So obviously you don't want to let them going and swinging from the chandeliers and breaking things and stuff like that. But you do have to remember what it was like to be a kid, and all our kids are all out there playing and stuff. We're not impressing anybody. I wouldn't be impressed if I saw you guys had some of your kids just sitting in here, unless they were being punished for something. But it's just like, I just don't want to have to worry about them doing something bad.
We've seen parents that do that.
Yeah, I've seen
Make
that
their
line.
kids sit and do not let them up. I don't want their clothes to get messy.
Yeah, let them get dirty.
Some of those parents, they're almost like, I taught my dog a new trick. Watch, lay down. It's all about look how strict I am. And they, I've seen it where the parents would actually, when we were younger, we were trying to learn and I'd watch parents brag about this. Watch this. Hey, Susie, come here. And this little 2-year-old toddler, come here. Stand right here. Don't move. And then he'd have a 10-minute conversation. See? Aww. And you're like, that's not what I want.
That's like borderline abuse.
They're not
animals.
And that's
not pets.
But that's what that mentality's out there. You're revolving around me. I'm still the king of this castle, and we're not talking about authority and leadership. We understand the structure, but we're cultivating a relationship. And when all your relationship is strict do's and don'ts. So we give you an example of being too disciplinarian versus letting your kid be a kid. You tell your kid to clean the room. You walk in an hour later, and the room's a mess. But you can see he started in the closet and then apparently got distracted. And so, you could walk in, I told you to clean your room. You never do anything right. And, there's kids that's what they hear. And imagine when you're on the job, if your boss is never happy with you, does that make you want to do better or worse?
Or leave.
Yeah.
Or leave, exactly.
Right. And that's it. That when I'm 18, I'm out of here.
Exactly.
That's what it creates. But what if you walk into that same room? There's your kid. He obviously forgot. You know, he's playing with the toy he picked up, and you look and say, "Hey, Johnny, look, I told you to clean the room. Look how clean that closet is. You think you could make the whole room that clean? What does that make Johnny do? Oh, yeah. It makes him want to. Yeah, I can do it. All right, well, see if you can make the whole room that clean. And then he comes in and you get, man, that's great. Just like when your boss comes in and says, man, I saw you came into work early yesterday. I appreciate that. You know what you tend to do? Show up early more because he's appreciated. Rather than hollering at you for, we're not ignoring the things that need dealt with, but we're offering genuine praise and positive criticism to help them. And now we're cultivating a relationship. Now, there's some times where you tell them to go in and it's because they just didn't want to do it. They don't need praise then.
Right.
They need a spanking then.
Right.
But, I remember when our kids were little, we'd say, Joshua, do this, this, and this. And they can't remember past the first of this.
Right.
And then you're like, well, you did one. They forget. And so just know if you're asking too much from them.
So every situation is different.
Imagine that, right?
They're not all cookie cutter situations.
Kind of goes back to the full beginning of the
Yes.
conversation. So, but that's just some thoughts that we have as parents, as pastors, and take it for what it's worth. Sit down with your Bible, figure out the non-negotiables, as Sister McMurtry mentioned. Those are the non-negotiable things. These are things God says we're going to do. Abortion's wrong. What's the word?
Contraceptive.
Abort
Contraceptives.
babies are wrong.
That's wrong. But then beyond that, as a family, we're going to decide that, and no other person needs to be in that room. Spanking is right.
Yep.
The Bible says to spank,
Yep.
but how often, how much, what's too much? Well, that's for you to sit down and figure out what's working for your little Johnny or Susie, and figure out how to work that. And don't try to. We're not at a dog show contest to see what our children can do and how obedient they are. And watch this, line up in a line, ready. Look. You're not trying to get anybody's rubber stamp on you. You're cultivating a family that you're going to enjoy in your old age, and you'll be thankful for all the time put into it. But anyway, we're going to do this again next year, maybe sooner if any of us get together and have a time at the Revival Studios or at the. Do you have a name for your studio there at
Spirit of Liberty.
Spirit of Liberty? That's the room, the Spirit of Liberty room. There you go. So if we end up at Spirit of Liberty, so you can reach out to us, and we can continue that. But for sure, this time next year we'll be answering these same questions. God bless.